會同北韓爭冠軍。白森嘅中國42分鐘，盧林右路開出罰球，浩林搶點成功，中國1球領先完半場。日本喺換邊之後嘅14分鐘，由赤嶺真吾嘅頭槌笠死門將李瑞攀平，但效力蘇超球隊些路迪嘅杜威補時階段接應罰球，為中國頂入奠定性嘅1球，贏2比1晉級決賽，會同北韓爭冠軍。香港喺東亞運踏入倒數第2日，憑住女子空手道同埋蛙艇增添3面銅牌。張志豪喺澳門報道。
女子個人型只有3個國家同地區參加，而只有23歲嘅葉靜怡係第一次代表香港出賽。佢今場對住澳門嘅選手張佩詩。個人型嘅比賽係自選嘅套路，當中講求運動員嘅腰馬、身形、眼神要合一。結果經驗較淺嘅葉靜怡分別以2場0比5輸咗俾澳門同埋日本嘅選手，最後獲得1面銅牌。除咗參加個人型嘅比賽之外，港隊亦都有派代表參加組手嘅比賽。女子60公斤級以下嘅組手，同樣係只係得3個國家同地區參賽。組手同自由搏擊差唔多，2位選手對打2分鐘。曾經喺釜山亞運奪得銀牌嘅陳嘉文穿上藍色呢一方，今場輸咗俾中華台北嘅林冠軍，比數係3比9。港隊獲得1面銅牌。亞洲電視記者張造澳門報導。
東亞運完成第8日嘅賽事之後，中國嘅金牌數目達到120面，而第2位嘅日本亦都拋離南韓，香港就增添3面銅牌。天氣方面，天文台預測未來嘅幾日大致天晴，部分時間有陽光、有煙霞，氣温介乎23。
Migratory birds caused the outbreak. Villagers blame poor hygiene conditions at farms. Jenny Lam reports.
More than 300,000 chickens have been culled by health authorities in Liaoning since an outbreak of avian flu was discovered in Heishan County late last month. But poultry can still be spotted in the affected area. Some farmers insist their birds are not sick, and they estimate there are still about 20,000 chickens in their village. This farm, for example, picked up chickens abandoned by other farms and is raising them together with pigs.
There
is nothing wrong with them, and anyway, I heard the disease cannot be passed on to humans or pigs, this woman says. Other farms, which saw their chickens dying, handed over thousands of birds to be destroyed when the culling began at the beginning of this month. About 300 of our chickens died, says this farmer. Authorities are still investigating whether migratory birds may have infected the chickens, but some villagers say it is more to do with poor hygiene at the farms. There's chicken droppings everywhere and the government doesn't do anything about it, complains one resident. The outbreak has dealt a severe blow to the local economy, which depends almost entirely on farming. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Bird flu has claimed its 5th victim in Indonesia. Health officials there confirmed today that a 19-year-old woman died of the disease last.
後仍然見到雞嘅蹤影。有村民話，當局要求佢哋自願交出銷毀，但部分人認為自己嘅雞冇病，繼續養。呢戶原本冇養雞㗎，更加將其他人棄置嘅雞執返嚟同豬一齊養。
聽他們說是不傳染豬和人，我覺得我們不擔這心。
當局話會對疫區內所有家禽強制撲殺，星期6之內完成。另外過百名醫務人員會替村民做健康檢查，同埋加強消毒周圍，防止有人感染。養殖業可以話係黑山經濟嘅重要支柱。今次禽流感一役，對於黑山嘅經濟同埋村民嘅生活嚟講，可以話係沉重嘅打擊。呢度嘅雞同雞蛋唔少都外銷到其他省份，6、7年前亦都開始銷往香港，目前已經暫停供應。而呢間香港人有份投資生產蛋撻嘅工廠亦已暫時停產。無線電視記者方東昇喺遼寧黑山報導。
解放軍下令全體官兵加強防範禽流感，各級恢復沙士時期嘅疫情報告網絡，必要時可以越級上報。林彥邦報導。
解放軍報報導，解放軍總後勤部近日2次發出緊急通知，強調軍隊各級必須對疫情形勢有明確認識同埋做好防疫準備，要求迅速啟動防治高致病性禽流感指揮部工作。 一旦發生疫情，要按照早發現、快反應、嚴處理嘅原則，撲滅疫情嚴防擴散。並且要嚴格執行報告制度。若果發現人類或者禽鳥感染禽流感，必須立即報告軍隊衛生部，必要時可以越級上報。喺北京，市農業局同公安局就喺市內實施動物強制免疫，所有飼養動物嘅人必須為動物做好禽流感同口蹄病等免疫工作。拒絕對動物接種疫苗或者阻礙防疫工作人員執行職務，會被拘留最多15日同埋罰款。無線電視記者林燕邦報道。
印尼就證實多2個人感染禽流感病毒，其中1個人已經。
This virus is very unstable and very unpredictable as well. That's why we have to also prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario.
He says the manufacturer of the antiviral drug Tamiflu has promised to donate 3 million courses of the drug to the WHO for use in an emergency. It has also agreed to license other pharmaceutical firms to make the drug in order to satisfy increasing demand. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
In other news, the government's political reform plans are facing a legal challenge. A man has filed a high court writ seeking a judicial review on the grounds that the government's proposals violate the Basic Law. The applicant, Law Hon Wing, wants the latest report by the Constitutional Development Task Force to be declared invalid. He claims it violates Annex 2 of the Basic Law, which states that the Legislative Council shall be composed of 60 members in each term. The government has proposed expanding the number of seats to 70, starting in 2008. In response to the legal challenge, the government says the proposals were made in accordance with the Basic Law and an interpretation by the National People's Congress Standing Committee last year. Violence has marred the Summit of the Americas in Argentina. Hundreds of anti-U.S. protesters clashed with riot police, set a bank ablaze, and looted shops as U.S. President George W. Bush and other leaders attended the summit nearby. Eve Lam reports.
Riot police fired multiple rounds of tear gas to disperse the angry crowd in the seaside resort of Mar del Plata. Protesters smashed through the windows of a bank and torched the building. Other nearby shops were also targeted, angry demonstrators dragging out whatever they could find to fuel bonfires in the street. Police said 64 people were arrested. The clashes erupted just 600 meters from where the 34-nation Summit of the Americas is being held.
This is not easy to host all these countries, particularly not easy to host perhaps me.
The violence followed an earlier peaceful rally against the U.S.'s free trade agenda. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez and former Argentine soccer great Diego Maradona were in attendance. Chavez said earlier the proposed free trade area of the Americas, or FTAA, is dead and, quote, "we are going to bury it here." Washington is hoping to win a commitment to revive talks on the FTAA next year. Opposition from Latin America's big economies over U.S. agriculture subsidies blocked it this year. Leaders at the summit are split on whether to mention the FTAA in their final declaration. Eve Lam, TVB News.
More than 1,000 people have staged a peace rally in France after 9 straight nights of violence plunged the country into chaos. They filed past burned-out vehicles, demanding calm and an end to the week-long unrest. Marchers held up banners reading "No to violence" and "Yes to dialogue." The rally came after the situation took a sharp turn for the worse last night. Authorities made more than 200 arrests in their largest sweep as far, as the disturbances spread from Paris to several other cities. More on that from Jeremy Austin.
A showdown on the streets of France. This youth was taken in by the police for a suspected arson attack. He was among more than 200 people arrested on the 9th straight night of unrest in the country, during which more than 750 vehicles, several warehouses and a nursing school were torched. There are now signs the trouble is spreading. Besides Paris and its suburbs, Toulouse and Nice in the south, and Lille and Rennes in the north also reported disturbances. The spotlight is now on President Jacques Chirac's government as it struggles to contain the country's worst unrest since student riots in 1968. Last night, Prime Minister Dominique de Villepin held a crisis meeting with Interior Minister Nicolas Sarkozy, who's come under fire for his hardline stance towards the rioters. Many see the violence, which was sparked by the accidental electrocution of 2 teenagers last week, as symptomatic of the despair and discontent among France's have-nots, especially its immigrant population. But Sarkozy, who has presidential ambitions of his own in 2007, has vowed to clean up the streets with a power hose. That kind of rhetoric has drawn the wrath of immigrants and activists who have demanded the minister's resignation. Efforts to curb the violence by beefing up police deployments have failed to curb the violence, and there are growing calls for the government to try a different approach. Jeremy Austin, TVB News.
In the U.S., an engineer at a California defense contractor and 3 others have been indicted on charges of stealing American military secrets and trying to smuggle them to China. The engineer's brother, Mac Tai Wing, and his wife, both U.S. residents, were arrested last week in Los Angeles as they were about to board a flight to Hong Kong. The engineer, Mac Chi, and his wife, both naturalized U.S. citizens, were detained at their home. Mac Chi is the lead engineer in a classified research project involving quiet propulsion systems for U.S. Navy warships. He's accused of taking sensitive information about the project, copying it onto disks with his wife's help, and giving it to his brother to take to China. The 4 are charged with theft of government property, conspiracy, and transportation of stolen goods. To Malaysia now, where hundreds of people have been evacuated from the Petronas Towers after a fire erupted in a shopping mall there. Authorities have ruled out arson. The blaze broke out at around midnight last night. The fire forced the evacuation of up to 800 people, most of them moviegoers in a cinema complex. No injuries were reported. Back locally, potential homeowners and buyers were cautious as the first batch of units went on sale today, following a move by local banks to raise interest today. 2 came in karate do events and 1 in women's rowing. That takes their medal tally to 12. And in men's basketball, Japan scored an upset 68-60 win over China in the semifinals. Jameson Wong reports.
Semifinals, and Japan got off to a quick start. Kei Ikarashi gave the Great Wall defense fits. Japan led at the break 35-27. Down big in the second half, the Chinese squad came back to cut the lead to 5 points. Yi Jianyan had 14 points but fouled out with 5 minutes to go. Ikarashi led Japan with 19 points. They will meet Chinese Taipei for the gold medal on Sunday. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
And tonight, China were out for revenge in the semifinals of the soccer competition. Gao Lin opened the scoring in the 42nd minute, heading in a curling free kick from Lu Lin. Japan equalized in the second half on a Shingo Akimini header. In stoppage time, Chinese captain Du Wei went high to put home the winner. China took it 2-1 and will meet North Korea in the final tomorrow after they defeated South Korea 2-0. And a look at the weather before we go. It'll be mainly fine tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 24 and 29 degrees. That's all from the newsroom. Thanks for now. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
籃球方面，國家隊喺4強以8
攞到7面嘅獎牌。港隊喺空手道比賽項目增添2面嘅銅牌，2場都係只係得3個人去角逐嘅啫。葉靜怡喺女子個人型得到第3，而喺女子60公斤級以下嘅組手，香港嘅陳嘉文2場都輸晒，得到1面銅牌。無線電視記者伍家謙喺澳門報導。
東亞運嘅最新獎牌榜，國家隊嘅金牌總數達到120面，日本得41面，而香港就以2金2銀8銅排第7。香港公開羽毛球錦標賽，
主場之利，畢竟實力同埋狀態都稍有不及對手。第一局先以2比11嘅比數輸波。第二局，謝杏芳繼續掌握場上嘅主動權，決勝分，黃晨打波出界。謝杏芳再輕勝一局11比3晉級，決賽將會同國家隊隊友深色衫嘅張寧爭冠軍。呢位奧運金牌得主以11比3同埋13比11贏咗代表法國嘅前國家隊球手皮紅艷。另外喺混雙嘅準決賽，黃色衫嘅奧運冠軍國家隊嘅張軍同埋高寧以0比2輸咗俾英格蘭嘅羅拔臣以及埃姆斯出局。無線電視記者馮堅成報導。
北京呢就首次舉辦國際低空跳傘比賽。
係咁，參賽者呢由市內最高嘅建築物中央電視塔跳落嚟，由梁國滔帶我哋睇睇。
比賽吸引咗20名外國健兒同埋5名內地選手參賽。 佢哋由中央電視塔230幾米高處一躍而下，以每小時80公里嘅速度下降，喺離地100米時先至張開降傘，只係需要9秒就着地，參賽者都十分雀躍。
Can you imagine jumping over there? Yeah, I can. It's fabulous.
比賽另一個刺激之處係每位運動員只可以帶備一副降傘。今次經已係內地第3次舉辦國際低空跳傘比賽。無線電視記者梁國滔報導。
天氣方面，預測係大致天晴，吹輕微至和緩嘅偏東風，最高
嘅呢一個養雞場嘅雞並冇發病，但係負責人收到政府嘅通知，話為咗控制疫情，要將佢晚3隻嘅雞全部殺晒。佢話每隻雞嘅成本價要17個半人民幣，咁但係政府嘅賠償每隻只有5蚊，咁估計會損失20萬。今次爆發禽流感嘅黑山縣係候鳥遷徙嘅路線。我哋喺雞場附近見到有大批嘅雀鳥喺樹上棲息。有專家估計，今次嘅疫情源頭可能係嚟自候鳥。有線電視記者敖玉美喺遼寧省黑山縣報導。
遼寧省長張文岳到黑山縣疫區巡視，佢話必須殺死疫區全部嘅家禽，同做好善後處理，防止疫情擴散，避免有人染病。佢又話：遼寧疫情發展得快，涉及範圍大，防控形勢嚴峻，要做好防控工作，包括做好非疫區家禽嘅防疫。省政府急撥850萬元人民幣作為疫區農民補助金同防控工作嘅開支。印尼再多2個人證實感染禽流感，佢哋住喺同一間屋，其中1人死亡。世界衛生組織話，2人嘅感染源頭可能同居住環境有關，暫時冇證據顯示禽流感病毒演變成人傳人。鄺雲上報導。
印尼最新感染禽流感死亡嘅係一個19歲女人，住喺雅加達附近嘅唐格朗鎮，上個月底死亡。同佢一齊住嗰陣，亦都出現禽流感病徵，情況良好。2人嘅樣本送嚟香港化驗，證實係感染 H5N1 禽流感。2人嘅屋企有雞隻死亡，印尼衛生部官員相信佢哋係接觸染病嘅雞受感染。世界衛生組織亦都話，暫時冇證據顯示禽流感病毒演變成人傳人。
We haven't had any particular thing to say that this is a human to human. We are still saying that the nephew has probably got.
準決賽呢就由中 just lining up to be a part of it。
代表進場開始。香港代表團又奪得女子50米蛙泳銅牌嘅孫嘉怡做旗手。
我宣布第4屆東亞運動會閉幕。
隨住呢一屆賽事嘅結束，下屆將會由香港接手主辦。民政事務局局長何志平喺澳門特別行政區社會文化司司長崔世安手中接過東亞運嘅會旗，交俾港協暨奧委會會長霍震霆，再轉交到香港射擊金牌得主黃輝手上。香港嘅區旗徐徐升起，燃點咗9日嘅東亞運聖火，火種從天而降，移交到蛙艇銅牌得主翁嘉欣手上，聯同會旗一齊運送返去香港。香港代表團之後用8分鐘嘅文藝表演迎接4年之後新一屆嘅賽事。城市當代舞蹈團負責演繹3段富有香港特色嘅舞蹈，展現香港動感之都嘅一面。